We are going to take that free childcare, and for working families, we will double it. With a Conservative government, you will get 30 hours of free childcare a week, equivalent to £5,000 a year. So we say to the working parents of 3- and 4-year-olds, £5,000 of savings for you. We are going to legislate that as the minimum wage rises, the basic tax-free allowance is automatically uprated too. We will change the law so that no one earning the minimum wage will pay income tax. Yes, the tax-free minimum wage under the Conservatives.
Our plan is to raise to £12,500 the basic rate threshold so that we take another 1 million people out of income tax altogether and cut tax for 30 million people. That's the plan. We're also going to raise the 40p threshold to £50,000.
At the centre, a policy on housing, extending right to buy to housing association tenants, giving up to 1.3 million families the chance to buy their homes at a discount, plus a £1 billion fund to unlock brownfield land to make way for 400,000 new homes.
We will fund in full the NHS's own plan for its expansion, the Stevens plan, and that means a minimum of £8 billion a year by the end of the next Parliament. I want to come back here to Brussels after that election, but with a very clear mandate to reform this organisation, to negotiate a better deal for Britain, and then to put that deal in a referendum to the British people, an in-out referendum. Do you want to stay in Europe on this reformed basis or leave before the end of 2017?
We've got to find £1 out of every 100 the government spends and save that rather than putting up people's taxes. So if you think of the department spending changes, it's similar to what we've had to do in previous years, and similarly for welfare. It is achievable.
That's not the way you raise living standards. No. Look, we've ruled out a rise in national insurance, in VAT and in income tax rates. Now, we are going to raise taxes for the highest earners, so we've said we're going to have the 50p rate back on those earning over £150,000 a year to help pay down the deficit. I think that's a fair choice. We're going to have a mansion tax on homes above £2 million to hire more doctors, nurses, midwives and care workers in our NHS. But I have a simple principle, Bill. Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden. So my pledge for your family finances: an £8 minimum wage, exploitative 0 hours contracts banned, tax credits protected, childcare extended, no rise in VAT, national insurance or the basic and higher rate of income tax, because this party is determined to raise the living standards of working people in our country. Our fourth pledge is on immigration. People will have to wait at least 2 years until they can claim benefits, 20,000 more nurses, 8,000 more GPs, 5,000 more home care workers and 3,000 more midwives. And our fifth and final pledge is to our young people, and I know we've got young people here today: smaller class sizes for 5-, 6 and 7-year-olds, an apprenticeship for every school leaver who gets the grades, and tuition fees reduced from £9,000 to £6,000. I want us to stay in the EU, Veronica, and as you say, it's not my priority to have a referendum on whether we should leave the European Union. Let me explain why. I think when I look at our country, I know what my priorities will be as Prime Minister: to tackle the cost of living crisis, to rescue our NHS, to build a future for our young people. I think leaving the EU will be a disaster for our country, because I think we rely on its jobs and the trade we get from being in the EU. I think strategically for Britain, whether you want to tackle terrorism or climate change or a whole range of issues, we've got to be an outward-looking country. And so that's not my priority. Now, I have said, and this is unlikely to happen, but I have said that if there's a transfer of powers from Britain to the EU, a further transfer of powers, we'd have an in-out referendum. But it's not likely to happen.
Labour's solution today: to go backwards. In other words, back to a time when the government involved itself in the private renting sector.
Those who rent,
a form of what we used to call rent control.
there'll be greater security with 3-year tenancies, and we will tackle the cost of living crisis by putting a ceiling on excessive rent rises.
And he'll do it, he says, through legislation.